Shish kebab sure does look good.
You like it? You want to eat?
This is the city of Hebron, located about 35 miles southwest of Jerusalem. It's the same village that Abraham came to in order to establish his home in the land that God had promised to him and his descendants. Today there's still a Jewish presence here in Hebron, about 500 people, surrounded by 20,000 Palestinians. That Jewish presence has been the cause of conflict. But any current day conflict is only an echo of that which extends back 4,000 years to the time of Isaac and Ishmael, and then later to the time of Jacob and Esau. Current activities here in Hebron are any indication. It looks like that conflict may very well extend into the future.
The losses to both Jewish and Arab families in Hebron and throughout the Mideast have been inestimable. No one can put a price on the blood of one Arab son or one Jewish father. No one but those who have lost sons and daughters, or mothers and fathers, can understand the weight of the anger and grief borne by the Palestinian people and their Jewish neighbors.
Now, David, what is this fence here for?
This fence is a de facto border between the Palestinian part of Hebron and the Israeli part of Hebron. In spite of the fact the real border is about 200 meters from here, this is basically as far as I'm allowed to go, and it's from this point that we are attacked almost on a daily basis by rocks and firebombs, acid bottles, and the like.
You're a part of a small Jewish community that lives here in the city of Hebron. How many of you are there that live here?
In Hebron itself, there are 550 Jews that live here. In the Hebron area, including Kiryat Arba, there are another 6,000 people. In the overall Hebron area, you have 10,000 Jews.
And how many of the Arab people would live in this area of Hebron?
In the area that we live, where there are 550 Jews, there are, according to military statistics, about 20,000 Arabs. In the area where there are 10,000 Jews, there are about 100,000 Arabs.
This particular location a scene of much conflict, rock throwing?
Over the last 3 days, there have probably been 100 firebombs thrown either here or in this area. There have been constant rock attacks. And it's very, very unfortunate. This isn't the way we want to live. However, this is the kind of pressure that Arafat and the Palestinian Authority is using to try to force the Israeli Prime Minister to concede more land to them.
Does not this conflict have deep roots? I mean, very deep roots going all the way back to the time of Abraham?
Of course it does. And that's a point that most people don't understand, and I think you've hit it right on the head. And that is the conflict here isn't political, it's religious. And that's why it's such a strongly rooted conflict, and that's why it's such a difficult conflict to resolve.
If you're saying this conflict goes all the way back to Abraham, that would make this probably the oldest Jewish community in the world, would it not?
It sure is. Hebron is the first Jewish city in the land of Israel. That's one of the reasons it's so important to us. All of the heritage, not only of the Jewish people, but all of monotheism, all of the roots of all of the major religions in the world began here. And today we're told that this is strictly an Arab city. The fact that there were Jews here for thousands of years before the advent of Islam, which only began in times of Muhammad about, 1,200 years ago. But we have no intention of going anywhere. This is one of the most important cities. The second holiest site for Jewish people is here in Hebron, and we have no intentions of going anywhere. We're staying.
Yet there is more to Israel's history than unresolved conflict. According to the most widely read book in the world, God did not choose Israel for Israel's sake alone. According to the Bible, God originally chose the Jewish nation for the purpose of revealing himself to Israel's neighbors. In the 4,000 years since Abraham, many outside of Israel have joined Jewish believers in seeing the hand of God in the unparalleled history of the chosen people. Down through the centuries, countless internationals have made peace with God and with one another as a result of finding God in the stories of the Exodus, in Israel's miraculous conquest of the Promised Land, in the stories of David and Goliath, Daniel in the lion's den, and Jesus walking on the water. Many outside of Israel have joined Jewish believers in seeing the hand of God in the blessings, judgments, dispersions, and restorations of this chosen people.
How would you react to someone if they came up and said, I don't buy this thing of the chosen people? The Bible says God is not a respecter of persons. How would you react to that?
Well, two ways. The first one is it's written in the Bible, and that's one thing. Second, it's not because we are better. That was never the issue. The issue is that God has a job to do. That's a plan of salvation for all humankind. And God is a good administrator. So he decides, you people do this job and you people do another job. That's the bottom line there. It's not that I am better than you. If both of us right now will die because of a bomb under this table, so what would you think? God may come and tell you, who is a Jew, free entrance to heaven, and who is a Gentile, now come and check you? Come on. So that is not the issue. The issue is God's plan. He has a purpose for that, and it's not because I am better than you. It's only because God has decided this will be the job description of His plan of salvation, and that's it.
This conviction that God chose Israel for the good of all is more than a look back. It is also a look into the future. According to the Bible, there is another chapter of Israel's story that is yet to unfold. God will, in the last days, establish peace among a remnant of Jewish and Arab people. One expression of this coming peace will be a major highway, which, according to the prophet Isaiah, will connect Egypt, Israel, Jordan, and Syria.
Salam. This is biblical Heshbon, located on the King's Highway. It's the site where the children of Israel had their last major battle before they entered the Promised Land. Moses was leading the Israelites along the King's Highway when confronted by the Amorites. They said they could not continue this way. Moses pleaded with the king, saying that his people would not go into their fields, would not bother their water supply, would not harm their homes. When the king refused, God allowed the children of Israel to defeat the Amorites here at Heshbon. There's an interesting connection between the King's Highway and the future. The ancient Jewish prophet Isaiah, in the 19th chapter of his book, talks about a highway that will start in Egypt, go through Israel, into Jordan, and on to Syria. This will be the roadway for the Egyptians in the south and the Syrians in the north to make their way to Jerusalem to worship with the Israelis, the Messiah, who will be ruling the world from that city. You know, it's quite interesting to note. I have a copy here of the Treaty of Peace between the State of Israel and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, signed in October of 1994. Article 13, entitled Transportation and Roads, in the fourth sentence says this: the parties agree to continue their negotiations for a highway to be constructed and maintained between Egypt, Israel, Jordan, and on to Syria. Even today, preparations are being made for that period of time in the future when Israel will worship together and have a time of peace with all of their Arab neighbors.
According to the words of the prophet Isaiah, in that day there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria, and the Assyrian will come into Egypt, and the Egyptian into Assyria, and the Egyptians will serve with the Assyrians. In that day Israel will be one of three with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing in the midst of the land, whom the Lord of hosts shall bless, saying, Blessed is Egypt, my people, and Assyria the work of my hands, and Israel my inheritance. Isaiah chapter 19.
As we await the fulfillment of the prophetic scriptures, we have a present conflict that is a result of the history of the Temple Mount, the conflict surrounding this very sacred piece of real estate. About 1,000 years before the birth of Jesus Christ, King Solomon built a temple. 400 years later, the Babylonians destroyed it. They came back into the land. They built another temple. At the time of Jesus Christ, it was known as Herod's temple. In 70 AD, the Roman soldiers destroyed that temple. About 600 years later, a Muslim man built the Dome of the Rock on this, the most sacred spot in all of the world, both for the Jews, the Christians, and then the Muslims as well. And for over 1,300 years, there's been a wall, a Western wall, that separated the Jews from the Muslims. If you believe the Bible, like we do, it says that in the future there will be a temple that will stand on that spot, and a Messiah that will bring an end, a resolution to the conflict surrounding this very sacred spot on earth.